What's up, everybody? If you don't know, Kuro Games is giving out a 5-star standard character selector as compensation for all the bugs during the launch of Wuthering Waves. And today, I just wanted to quickly go over who I recommend selecting on your 5-star selector. Of course, this changes based off of what characters you got during your novice banner and your beginner banner. And you do also have the choice of getting the first sequence on any of the 5-star characters as well. But I'm going to be going down the list from the weakest to the strongest characters, as well as go over their first sequence to see if it's more worthwhile to get a duplicate instead of getting a different character from the 5-star pool. Now, before we start getting into it, of course, you can always pick whatever character you want or get the sequence for whatever character you like. It's always up to you. But this is, in my opinion, the most worthwhile choice you can use with your 5-star selectors. First, we'll go over the most future-proof and definitely the strongest standard 5-star, Verina. The reason being is not only is she one of the only healers out right now in 1.0, but she provides 2 different damage boosts. An attack percent boost with her inherent skill, and a damage percent boost with her outro skill, as well as providing very high healing, a death save with her other inherent skill, and coordinated attacks with her ult that will increase your damage by a lot. Now, if you already own Verina, I would not recommend getting a duplicate of her using the selector, as her first sequence only provides a extra heal over time whenever she uses her outro skill. But if you have a proper rotation, you should not be needing that extra healing ever, as the heal from her ult will be more than enough to keep your team sustained. But if you don't own her, I would recommend getting her over any of the other 5-stars, as she's more future-proof than any of the other 5-star characters available, since a support is much harder to power creep out than a DPS is. On top of Verina being very flexible as a support, letting her be used in almost every single DPS comp. Second best option you can choose on the 5-star selector, in my opinion, is definitely Jianxin. While she is more likely to be power crept in terms of her role as a DPS/sustainer hybrid, what is nice is her ease of use in many teams, as her ult has an amazing grouping ability since it's a black hole, and it'll help skyrocket the damage of many characters who have very low AoE like Calcharo. On top of her good CC and grouping ability, she also works amazingly as a support, as her outro skill increases the ult damage of the next unit, making her perfect for characters that have transformation ults that make all their attacks do ult damage for a short time, like Calcharo. Now, if you already own Jianxin, I wouldn't recommend getting her first sequence, as it just increases the amount of her forte resource Chi is gained by her basic attacks after using her intro skill. And her forte circuit should only really be consumed if you need healing or shielding when your team is low, as it has a really long casting animation if you consume her resource and will lower your overall damage potential in rotations if you use it constantly. Now, unsurprisingly, my third option for choosing your 5-star selector on is Calcharo. The reason being is that his damage is some of the highest in the game right now, and the current characters available to us in 1.0 really work well with him. Most of Calcharo's damage comes from his ult state, where he converts his basic attack damage into ult damage and increases that damage by a lot. This also makes him perfect for ult damage buffers like Jianxin, as well as based off of what we've seen in CBT2, Yinlin will be the strongest paired with Calcharo, as he benefits from the electro damage bonus and the ult damage bonus that Yinlin's outro skill provides, on top of her high coordinated attack damage. But he is a very inflexible DPS with his support options. To make him the most effective, you have to use somebody that provides an ult damage bonus, as most of his DPS only comes from his ult state. And if you already own Calcharo, I would not recommend getting his sequence one, as it just gives him extra ult energy whenever he hits an enemy with his skill every 20 seconds. And he already generates a lot of ult energy from his forte mechanic, making this sequence one kinda useless. Second to last of who I would recommend is definitely Encore. Now, Encore does have the highest burst damage in the game right now, but she is much more restrictive even compared to Calcharo. The reason being is that her supports have to be not only good at DPSing by themselves, but also have the outro skill that increases basic attack damage. This is because to get Encore's high burst DPS, you need to cast her Enhance Heavy. And since it has a long cast animation, you'll want to swap off to a different character so you don't lose DPS as she's casting. Meaning in an Encore comp, you spend much more time on support characters than in other DPS comps. And because Encore's damage is focused around her enhanced heavy attack, supports that use coordinated attacks are not good with her either, as she will only cast basics and skill enough to be able to use the enhanced heavy before swapping off to a different character. Now, you don't have to play her as your main DPS. You can use her as a sub-DPS kind of bursty option as well, where you use a standalone character that works well without any supports and Encore on the same team. Now, I do have experience playing like this, since for the first 16 hours-ish of Wuthering Waves, I played with the Chisha, Encore team. So I was used to swapping in Encore for just some extra big burst damage while I continued to play the game as Qixia. And it worked really well. It increased the damage on bosses a lot, and it just felt very comfy to play. If you want to get Sequence 1 on Encore, it is quite good. It gives you a stacking fusion damage bonus up to 12% every time you basic attack. But it is better for a playstyle where you're trying to use her as a secondary DPS, not as a hyper carry, as the 12% is negligible if you do have a dedicated support to help buff Encore. Now let's go over my last pick option for the 5-star selector, Lingyang. Now, Lingyang has a similar problem to Encore, as he needs a buffer that increases basic attack damage, but they don't need high personal DPS like Encore needs, as you primarily want to stay on Lingyang as long as possible. But the bigger problem is that Glacio has no good support options right now that heavily buff Glacio damage. As well as, unlike Encore, Lingyang can only be played as a constantly on-field main DPS due to his forte mechanic. Now, of course, this will change in the future as more characters come out. We'll eventually come out with a very strong Glacio support DPS, but by the time they come out, most likely there will be better DPS options than Lingyang, and potentially even better DPS options that work in his niche of mid-air combat. Now, if you already own Lingyang and are thinking of getting his Sequence 1, I cannot recommend it. The reason being is that it just increases interruption resistance while in the Striding Lion state. But the Striding Lion state already has increased interruption resistance, as well as, since you're fighting in mid-air, you don't get hit by most attacks, making it pretty useless. But that's all I have for you guys right now. If you guys enjoyed the video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you guys want to catch me live on Twitch, I'll probably be streaming later tonight around 7 p.m. CST. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.